All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Boca Chambers special September trustee presentation with CFO Jimmy Patronis. This is going to be a really special hour, especially just for you, for our trustee members. CFO Patronis is one of those guys that gets us fired up. We feel very good that he's in his seat, a member of the cabinet up in Tallahassee. Doing a great job for us. And I'm Troy McClellan. I'm your president and CEO. What I want to do, though, is just to remind everybody what the chief financial officer for Florida does. I mean, the obvious one, obviously, is that he oversees all the state's accounting and auditing functions and financial functions. But CFO Patronis also oversees insurance consumer services as well, responsible for insurance agents and agencies, et cetera. He's also over any kind of insurance fraud investigation that has to do with workers' comp, et cetera. In addition, CFO Patronis is the state's fire marshal, so responsible for fire-related training, education, and CFO Patronis does an amazing job at recognizing those first responders and heroes out there working every day. And as I said, a member of the Florida cabinet, along with the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Ag and Governor DeSantis. So Jimmy Patronis is a chamber guy. He and his family own a restaurant called Captain Anderson's up in Panama City, which is where he was born and raised, by the way. A true Floridian. He got his associate's degree in restaurant management. See, he took that forward from Gulf Coast Community College, and he got his bachelor's from Florida State. So go Noles. By the way, his restaurant is on its 53rd year in business. So that's one heck of a chamber party when you get to that point. So congratulations on that tenure. His public service started when he was an intern in the Florida Senate in the United Kingdom's House of Commons. There's got to be a story behind that. Maybe we'll get to it. But following his college graduation, Governor Lawton Childs appointed CFO Patronis to the Florida Election Commission, and then he was later reappointed by Governor Bush. Served in the House, Florida House, from 06 to 14, representing his hometown region in the Florida Panhandle. Served on the Florida Public Service Commission, the Constitutional Revision Commission, which meets once every 20 years to propose changes to the state constitution. He's had and been recognized throughout, clearly his hometown of Panama City, but the state of Florida for his amazing leadership, committed to active civic engagement and business development. He chaired the Greater Panama City Chamber of Commerce's Economic Development Council, served on the board of the Bay County Economic Development Alliance, Salvation Army Advisory Board, Bay County chapter of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, and as national president of the Florida Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. He's a former trustee of Gulf Coast Medical Center, former director of the Bay Medical Centers Foundation and Gulf Coast Community College Foundation Board, was instrumental in the establishment of the Northwest Florida Beaches International Airport in Panama City, and served as chairman of the board and member of the Bay County Panama City International Airport and Industrial District. There's many more things and accolades, but he and his wife, Katie, are proud parents to their two boys, Jimmy Theo III and John Michael. And so with that, CFO Patronis, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today. It's going to be an awesome hour. I know it's going to fly by, but I appreciate you in challenging times, carving out time to be with our group today. So welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Troy. And as always, it's so great to be able to join y'all. And yeah, you read way too much bio. I don't need all. The one thing the bio doesn't have that I'm proud of is I was chair of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce for 2 terms. And, a lot of fun, you get to lead an organization. I tell people, I said, man, for those 2 years, the chamber was like my church, man. I did everything with the chamber, and it was, you definitely have a way to help businesses out, and you get to see how businesses develop, and you just learn about a lot about your community. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. As most of y'all have met, Aaron on our team, he's our program manager for your backyard. And I hope y'all, reach out to Aaron whenever you might need something. Aaron's he's a great young man. Used to work with Representative Chet LaMarca, but Aaron Richmond is he grew up in your backyard, and I just use him like a rental car. Whatever that you might need, questions regarding governmental issues, even if they fall outside of what's under the Department of Financial Services, Aaron should be a Swiss Army knife to you to be able to figure out and get you the answers. And I tell people all the time in my office that I'm elected to serve. And you know what? I'm elected to serve no matter what the question might be. I get questions about local government, federal government, state government, and it's not our job to pass the ball, or pass the buck and let somebody else figure it out. If we can figure out the answer for you, that's what we should be doing. So again, thank you. And it's no different than what you do every day at the chamber. You're the most trusted source of information for so many, not just your members, but the community, because they want to get the latest up to date of what is taking place, or what is the latest in the response with COVID, or what are the latest requirements or prerequisites that my business is going to have to be concerned with as we're dealing with this unseen enemy. The chamber is always a clearinghouse for that. And Troy, thank you for you and your team and your leadership and helping us navigate this. It's been a difficult year. The last 6 months has been something as a slow-moving hurricane that's not just hovered over the state of Florida, but over the whole United States. Thank goodness that we have had, threats of hurricane that have not created a catastrophic disaster in our state, in addition to what's been challenging with COVID. Just last week, we deployed out Task Force 4, and that is urban search and rescue teams out of the Orlando area. And my office gets to coordinate the logistics and movement and moving those teams out. So we sent out Task Force 4 out of Orlando over to Lake Charles over in Louisiana and Cameron, Louisiana. And our Floridians, our firefighters, first responders, they're there right now as we speak. Getting updates. And, the place has been wiped off the map. And it's our first responders that were some of the first boots on the ground. They ran into a wall of debris. They've been cutting through it. They've been flying in through Louisiana National Guard, Black Hawk helicopters getting deployed out, administering life-saving, services to those communities that have been cut off from all, civilization, with no access to, electricity, water, cellular, you name it. And it makes me proud that, our guys from Florida are over there saving people's lives. But you know what? When Hurricane Michael hit Northwest Florida, it was Louisiana that came over with over 200 of their own urban search and rescue teams and deployed out to help serve the same mission. So we reciprocate with our good friends in Louisiana. But with what we've dealt with, the state's finances have been a challenge. I'm not telling you anything you don't know in all your small businesses. We are billions of dollars down in state's revenue. The state sales tax is 81% of the state's revenues. And when we lost the months of March, April, May, June, July in sales tax revenues, and June and July trended up from what the revenue estimating conference was expecting, but still it was a catastrophic loss compared to what it should have been compared to last year. So with this sales tax driven economy that we have in the state of Florida, we're going to have our hands full moving forward. So the legislature in March, they passed a $93 billion budget. It took a while before Governor DeSantis acted on that budget, but ultimately Governor DeSantis vetoed $1 billion. That's the most that's ever been vetoed in the history of the state. But that type of decision is difficult, but what it's going to do, it's going to have an amazing effect on the ability for the state to move forward. We will be several $billion short in revenue this year. We'll be several $billion short in revenue next year. And if you look around our state, in May, I was in Orlando, and it's like a zombie apocalypse had set in on International Drive. All the hotels were closed, the restaurants were closed, the convention business had gone away. And you see this some in your backyard. And this, I know we're out of season for you, but it's not going to be long before you'll start to see a pickup in your season with what you should be expecting of those businesses that see that type of a spike, in Palm Beach County. And in Northwest Florida, we're just ending our season. So those drive-to markets in the state were well rewarded. The hotels were full. The restaurants were full, the activities were full, but the airplanes were definitely not full going into some of these larger markets. So the challenges that we've got, Governor DeSantis came out in the last week, had a press conference down in Fort Lauderdale to do nothing but praise what the airline industry is doing in order to tell the public that it's safe to fly again, because there's no two ways about it. We had over 100 million tourists visit Florida last year. It's going to be a few years before we get back to that number again. And we will definitely feel the loss of their impact on our state's coffers because of the dollars they spend coming down and enjoying our incredible state. So as we're trying to navigate what the next few years looks like, here's another reality. The federal government has acted. The federal government has set down what is called the CARES Act dollars. In my state's checking account, I've got 3 checking accounts. One of the accounts has got about $6 billion in it, and those are CARES Act dollars. Those are for non-budgeted COVID-related expenses. Here's the challenge we've got. Because the way those dollars are written, the state just can't plug budget losses with those dollars. The Fed's programmed it where it's got to be COVID-related, non-budgeted expenses. So that is definitely tied the hands of the state, and this is why you have heard multiple requests that they have a new package come out of Congress, and there is impasse. I think the closer we get to Election Day, that impasse will stay in place. Congress won't be back until Tuesday. They'll go back up. There'll be dialogues again to try to work something out. But you've got, not that long ago, Nancy Pelosi was calling Trump morbidly obese. And when those type of salvos are being thrown at each other, the likelihood that they're going to come forward with any type of consensus building policy is unlikely. Meanwhile, we're sitting on almost $6 billion in federal dollars made to aid in the COVID recovery effort in the state. And we've got limited influence over how those dollars can be used because of how they're programmed. So part of the other challenge that we've seen is so we've got also $14 billion of unemployment benefits that have been distributed by the state of Florida into the hands of our citizens. Florida was also the second highest recipient of PPP dollars applications of any second and largest in the state. So you put some of those factors into it. We have had a lot of money dumped into this state. We're still sitting on a lot of money that we could potentially use to offset and help cash flow the state. But consumer confidence, all these things are not just unique to Florida. It's with every state. Earlier this week, there's a mass exodus where you go to New York and they're running out of U-Haul trailers. Those families, enough's enough. They don't like the civil unrest. They don't like the high taxes. They don't like the financial circumstances. They don't like the lockdowns. And so you're starting to see, again, more of what we have known. We knew that we got it good in Florida, but now more and more other states are realizing that it's no fun living in a high tax state that's not safe and is doesn't respect their people. So excuse me a second. So in saying that, we've got our work cut out for us. Some of this we will be waiting on the federal government to sit down and maybe have another a round of talks. And some of this, in my opinion, may happen after the election in November. With the Florida legislature has already made it pretty loud and clear. They want to come back in November and rework the state's trust funds. When the Governor DeSantis vetoed $1 billion, there are dollars there that are sitting in various trust funds. My agency is basically funded off of a trust fund. So we've got dollars that are sitting in trust funds. The legislature will come in and they will take those dollars and they will shift them over and reprogram them in order to cash flow the state and in a manner that's still safe for the operation of those government services, but then try to pick up some of the revenue shortfalls that we're having because sales tax revenues are down in the state. So the last thing I'll leave you, and then Troy, if y'all got some questions, I'd love to answer them. Please visit two things. I want you to visit fltreasurehunt.gov. That's our state's unclaimed property website. We've had our biggest year ever. We gave out over $300 million. So whether it be you or your loved one or your business or a family friend, go check out the website. It's like a Google search. Go put those different names in there. And the more information that you provide us, the finer tune that we can get the search. But, start it off and be very broad. You can start off just putting your last name or just the name of your business, and let's see what we've got in our coffers for you, and we'll reunite you with those dollars at no expense. And then lastly, you've got some great legislators in your backyard. We're going to continue to turn up our advocacy and ensuring that this year we have some type of COVID liability protection for our small businesses in the state. Too often than not, as businesses are struggling, they're abiding by CDC guidelines, Department of Health guidelines, trying to do what's right to keep their employees and their customers happy and healthy and be able to sustain their businesses. We don't want to allow a frivolous lawsuit environment to emerge. So we've been making the case of the need for business liability. Leader McConnell has been doing this in the United States Senate. There's a chance something may still happen if Congress works something out. But needless to say, we're going to constantly be, forcing that issue and keeping it on the front burner because we think it's just too important for our business community, our non-for-profit community, our hospitals, our schools to deal with that threat because of, what could be interpreted as a cause to COVID. But we, are abiding by all the best guidelines, and we're making the investments that the federal government and state government and local governments tell us to do to keep our people safe and happy and healthy. We shouldn't be, held liable if we're doing everything that government's telling us. So anyway, that's I'd rather now, turn it off and let y'all ask some questions. Troy, what you got?
All right. Well, thank you, CFO Patronis. Appreciate that. I know you're tight on time. Right when we started, we may need to trim it down a little bit because I know you've been pulled. But so let's get right into questions if it's okay.
Sure.
So we had one come up about internet sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
With so much more business online due to COVID, is there any more movement on collecting the sales tax from the online businesses shipping into Florida?
So great question. We've got a number of, and here's just for a little clarity. Right now, when you buy something from Amazon, more than likely you're seeing a sales tax line on it. Amazon now has a nexus in the state of Florida. So because they have a presence in Florida, we're businesses, and I'll just use for an example, like a B&H Photo out of New York, large, huge electronics company, and they advertise on their website, buy from us. We can tell from your IP address that you're in Florida. You don't have to pay sales tax. Well, technically you do. So the way the laws are written right now, sales tax is still supposed to be collected, but in Florida, it's kind of like the honor system. When Troy goes and buys something from a unique business in another state, and Floyd and Troy is not charged that sales tax. It is the obligation of the purchaser to try to remit the sales tax back to the state. It's not a very cut and clear process. So, me personally, it's already an obligation to the citizens of the state to pay this sales tax when they're buying these items. I think the legislature in this November legislative session, they'll probably have a special session right after their organizational session when they all get sworn in. And to me, I think the internet sales tax is something that's definitely going to be in there and basically help codify it and make it a little cleaner. I think Florida is the last state that really has not bought into the full implementation of this. And look, I'm the first to tell you that, I don't like to feed the beast more money, but at the same time, there's an obligation to do what is by the letter of the law. And, if your conscience is bothering you, I tell you what, the state of Florida will definitely collect your money. So I think you'll see something this legislative session definitely in debate about that because of the circumstances we'll be in.
Good. That's great news. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I'm going to go around. The questions are about different subjects, so I'll probably bounce
Okay.
around here a little bit. With COVID impacting the state's revenue, as you mentioned, is Florida prepared financially for any serious hurricane impacts?
So great question. And let me give you a little bit more of a background on the dollars. So we rolled into the spring of 2020 and we had $2 billion of carry forward money from the previous year that was basically not spent by the legislature. Basically, the legislature passed a budget and then said, okay, we've passed everything we need, and we're going to leave $2 billion sitting in our savings account. So that $2 billion was there. In addition to that $2 billion, we've got $1.4 billion, which is called the Budget Stabilization Fund. So we had about $3.5 billion sitting there to carry the state forward if the train came off the tracks. The train came off the tracks. We went through the $2 billion, and what we did is once we went through that $2 billion, we have seen an uptick in the state's economy. Like I said, June and July were better than what we expected them to be in the COVID world that we're in. We'll still see, that greater trend. But again, the state is well enough to be able to carry through. But if Congress comes back and gives a little bit of flexibility, saying, okay, the $6 billion of CARES Act dollars that Jimmy has in his checking account, I'll let you use it as a bridge loan or carry money. Then you really don't see a lot of hiccups because that'll be enough to carry us to almost 2 years if we're to predict the shortfalls. Then on the hurricane side of things, two things I'll leave with you that should give you some peace of mind. Florida has what's called the Catastrophic Fund, the CAT Fund. It's got $12 billion in cash in it. It's got bonding up to $17 billion. And then in addition, we've got Citizens Insurance, which is the state-run insurance company. It's got about $6 billion in cash in it. So Citizens, I'll just say that Citizens, and its 500,000 policies has got the state of Florida. You're going to be okay there. The CAT Fund is like our own state's reinsurance program in order to ensure that the insurance carriers in the state of Florida have financial backing in order to pay the claims that hit. Now, if you have an 04-05 season where we had 4 storms, y'all had Wilma in your backyard, but if we have another year, 2 years like that hit us, it won't be fun to balance the budget then. But because say again, we are in a good place right now, and hopefully hurricane season will dodge a bullet this year. We need it.
Yeah. Knocking wood. Next question. It says anecdotal feedback from insurers is that the majority of COVID claims, at least so far, have not been compensable because there is no positive test for COVID or for COVID antibodies. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah. So again, I hate to discount the efforts that have been made at all levels of government and private sector and public sector to deal with COVID. But, it's like my uncle used to say, and he still says, there's a reason why they call medicine a practice. The COVID testing that is out there it's good. It's not perfect. 2-3 weeks ago, I had 4 days of 102, 103 fever. I had lost my taste. I felt horrible. Next thing you know, I go and get my COVID test. I had 2 of them. I had the molecular test and the rapid test. Both of them came back negative. But the doctors are convinced I had it. So I'm going to go tomorrow or Wednesday, and now it's the appropriate amount of time. I'll go test and see if I have the antibodies. And then if I've got the antibodies, I can go donate blood to help others. So, I mean, it's not perfect. My son is at school today. He's got all the telltale symptoms for COVID. They gave him a rapid test. He didn't have COVID, didn't have strep. So, it's unfortunate that we're navigating such uncharted waters. And I can't give you, and we can't give our citizens, the total airtight solution to this. But there is science when you wear a mask that you're going to keep and contain your coughs and sneezes. But what more importantly is, so is your neighbor and your friends are contain their coughs and sneezes, or at least you're not going to increase the likelihood of community spread with this. So it's not a perfect answer, but we don't have a perfect solution to the problem either.
Right. Thank you for that. Got a question about Mexico Beach. How far along is
Okay.
Mexico Beach in its hurricane recovery?
Mm. It is not far along enough yet. So if you're looking at moving to Mexico Beach, there's still lots of opportunities and beautiful Gulf front property there that is itching to have your name on it. Mexico Beach, God love them. Mayor Kathy is such a great guy. But you know, the community was wiped off the map. In addition to being wiped off the map, so many of the homes there in Mexico Beach were second and third generation residences. They were built at surface level. They were not on stilts. Some of the newer homes were on stilts. So there's just a lot of homes that were wiped off the map. And then you add on top of that is it's a second and third generation home. Well, mom and dad had paid for the house, 30 years ago. So now the kids inherit it. So the only thing the kids are doing is just paying the property taxes on it. Some of them went naked and didn't carry insurance on it. So now it's basically a big blank sheet of paper. It will come back with the latest building codes, the newest developments, and it's such a beautiful part of the state. But my heart goes out to it because the people that enjoyed it for the last 50 years, 60 years, they're no longer going to be coming back because most of them have left, they've cashed out, and now the personality that Mexico Beach has had, for those that are familiar with it, it will be different. That's okay. It'll be a new personality, it'll be a new neighbor. And then the legislature this past year, and they did the year before, they passed a special housing assistance program where it was a $15,000 down payment assistance to help families that were under a certain income have a $15,000 down payment assistance program in order to buy a home or keep their home. So programs like that helped us retain our personality, our identity, our people, our first responders, our teachers, all those folks that are in that starting job area. And so things like that help retain the identity of our community. But Mexico Beach, unfortunately, it was a vacation community. It'll be a new look, but it'll be an attractive one. It'll be all brand new.
Yeah. Well, maybe along those lines, thinking about where EFI and Visit Florida have been over the past couple cycles, not exactly been supported thoroughly. Where do you see, when you think of Mexico Beach and wanting to have Visit Florida be able to do what they can in its new sort of look and feel, promote Mexico Beach as one of our great assets right in the state of Florida. Any sense, Mr. Patronis, about where the legislature will go in their funding of EFI and Visit Florida?
So here's what I do know. The last, I would say, 4 years, Visit Florida and Enterprise Florida, the legislature, and more specifically the House of Representatives, has had their crosshairs on both of those organizations. And there was a lot of criticism to some of the marketing preferences that Visit Florida had. There was some criticism to some of the return on investments from Enterprise Florida. But there's a little bit of a different attitude in the Florida House of Representatives now. And I think especially now that what we're dealing with COVID and the challenges with our state's tourism market and our economic development, prospects right now more than ever, we need to double down in outreach and funding. And in the scheme of things, giving Visit Florida $40-50 million, that's a drop in the bucket when it comes to a $93 billion budget. Right. Giving Enterprise Florida, $40 million in the scheme of things, it's nothing, considering usually what you'll see is the leveraged return on investment for both of those. So, my heart has always been, but I'm always going to be erring on the side of caution that the glass is half full, that we're always in the mode of recruiting businesses, that we're always in the mode of promoting businesses. And, I constantly, I think my new favorite person to troll is Elon Musk, because as I start to see more and more the state of California just running businesses and innovations off, I'm going to constantly advocate for our, no income tax, low tax, beautiful state of Florida. And as we've seen this movement organically, I still think it's an opportunity to be seized every time another state doesn't appreciate innovation or hardworking or, investment.
Yeah. And given the destination marketing organizations and being 501c6s, not yet even eligible to get any PPP, that industry may need an injection. So we appreciate you saying that. We work hard every year to make sure that EFI and Visit Florida are fully funded, or to the extent that they can be fully funded. And for sure, we're going to need that, no question. Another issue we come up to Tallahassee, and we talk to you about every year too, is the commercial lease tax, or the rent tax. Got a couple different names, and we've been advocating for its full repeal for a number of years, and the legislature continues to chip away, so we don't have to be the only state, right, that has it in its form. Any sense going forward that under the circumstances with COVID that we can still make some forward movement?
So I talked to the Association of Realtors last week, and there's a number of issues that are important to them, that are important to me. And I told them, I said, whether we're looking at business liability for COVID, whether we're looking for some type of reforms when it comes to litigation, when it comes to home ownership, or any of these things that drive up the cost of home ownership because insurance rates go up. I said, I think there's some policy positions that we can definitely advocate for this year. I think the legislature is going to be in a mode of trying to hold on to every nickel and dime that they can. And the legislature, probably will, tell, those stakeholders that would like to see some easing of the business rent tax, hey guys, you know what? It's going to be a tough year to do it. Now, I still think with every legislative body this year, there's going to be brand new legislators that have gotten elected, both in the House and the Senate. I still say you got to continue to educate those new legislators of the fairness issue of how Florida collects a sales tax on lease income and other states don't. So, if we see something filed or something proposed that could possibly get into an overall tax package, I say we rally around it and continue to advocate for it. If the legislature, ultimately decides against it, then we've still taken the efforts, but we're still taking the efforts to educate these brand new round of legislators, the importance of this issue. And you know what, if it doesn't happen this year, maybe it's next year.
Yeah. And, hopefully at some point, if we can collect the online sales tax to its potential, that would be, an offset to the loss in the commercial lease tax. So.
Sure. Absolutely.
What mix of revenue increase and expense cut ideas is the administration considering to make up for the several $million sales tax revenue shortfall for 20 and 21?
So what's going to be interesting is constitutionally last cycle, the state of Florida voted for a supermajority requirement for the increase of any taxes or any fees. So, in the case of the Florida Senate, it'll probably be a Republican Senate by about two senators. So it'll probably be like 22 to 18. But to pass any type of tax increase or fee increase, you're going to have 2/3 out of both chambers in order to pass any type of revenue enhancement. That's an incredible lift. It's a huge lift. And, there'll be a lot of, and that's meaning that you have to get every single Republican to sign off of it. And you've got to get Democrats to be agreeable to it too. So I think you will see a legislature that will take a hard look at states' trust funds. And again, let me explain a little bit more about trust funds, because this is something not everybody realizes. So we've got general revenue. That's just sales tax dollars that we collect that comes in every time the state of Florida gets a commission, every time you buy something from one of your local stores. With the trust funds, so let's say in my case, in my office, I have got our trust fund that basically operates the Department of Financial Services, and it's cash flowed off of the renewal of licenses of insurance agents. So when an insurance agent renews that license, that fee that we collect ends up going into a trust fund, kind of like a savings account. And then the legislature every year says, okay, Jimmy, we're going to allow you to spend so many dollars of your trust fund to operate your company, the Department of Financial Services. So what happens is we've got trust funds in almost every single agency in the state. The legislature will go through and they'll look at all those trust funds and say, okay, there's $100 million in this particular trust fund, but it can operate next year safely with $75 million. The legislature then will swipe $25 million from that trust fund. And it may be specifically programmed that it comes from in my case, they could take trust fund dollars that came from insurance agent licenses, and it could go to offset the expenses of running hospitals in the state. So that's what the legislature will have to debate this year. So they'll look at all these different trust funds. They'll look at the margins that are there. They'll make sure there's good, healthy margins there. And anything above that margin, they're just going to sweep it. And it's not a popular thing to do, but it's less painful than raising taxes or raising fees.
Right. Thank you for that. That's
Sure.
Appreciate that explanation. So this question talks about technological innovation, and are there any incentives in the state to use to bring tech companies to Florida?
Sure. So, I mean, the state of Florida, we over the last few years, we've done everything we can to try to create a environment to give us a playing field that is more attractive than other states. And this was some of the arguments that were used against Visit Florida and Enterprise Florida. I'm sorry, they were used against Enterprise Florida because we give you a state with no state income tax. We give you a state with low taxes. We give you a state with low corporate taxes. Why do we need to give you incentive money? Well, so we've got these basic advantages that we have over other states, but you still have to sometimes have a partnership with a university to necessarily be an educational partner for these type of developments of creating the talent pool or the pipeline for the labor force that you might need. So all that stuff still, plays a role in our development and recruitment. But like a couple of months ago, I was in Brevard County at Cape Canaveral, and I was watching the first launch of manned space flight in Florida in almost 40 years. It's a big deal for our state to have, there's 20 years, to have this taking place. So I'm talking to the number 2 at NASA, and I'm asking, I say, hey, are you having trouble, between Blue Origin and SpaceX and NASA and Boeing, are you having trouble getting the talent that you need in order to fill these missions and then what you're doing? And they say, no, quite honestly, it's a little bit the opposite, because we are such a hotbed for all this activity taking place. And there's a generation of young adults that, aspire to be part of that next great generation of putting man on the moon, or man on Mars, or woman on moon, or woman on Mars. So all that being said, we've definitely had some benefit from having those private sector companies come to Florida and make those investments and those commitments and the technology that comes along with it. Now, on the flip side, Enterprise Florida has ponied up money and incentives to bring all those players here. So there shows you where our investment, returns, good paying jobs and high profile technologies. But when we stop making that investment, the interest also dies off too. So we can't back off from those opportunities. And again, this is that was definitely something Governor Scott woke up. That's definitely something Governor Scott woke up and was very passionate about. And I think Governor DeSantis is definitely showed a lot of interest in. But again, COVID's been a pretty big attention, consumer through all the last 6 months.
Right. By the way, the person that asked that question also made a comment that said he went on to fltreasurehunt.gov and he found out he's got $99 to claim. So
hey, that's a cell phone bill. I'm telling you, if 1 in 5 Floridians has something in there, and it's uncashed paychecks, it's utility deposits, it's stock dividends, you name it.
fltreasurehunt.gov. If you haven't gone on, go ahead and do that. Another question. describe, you've been in Tallahassee for a long time, and there's a special environment and vibrancy about Tallahassee, especially during session, of course. What's it like governing now from your home, from your perspective, who's been at this for a while? Challenging for sure, but share your perspective, if you would, CFO Patronis, about that.
So I think the same thing that most of us have been dealing with. We have embraced technology more than we ever had before. Here's my big concern. I've seen what's happened to the economy of Tallahassee over the last 6 months, and it's a town with a university with two universities and government there, and it's the capital. But if one of those or any of those are affected by this, the businesses just dry up. So Tallahassee's definitely had a real gut punch from this. But I go into Central Florida and you go to Orlando and I look at the convention business there is totally dried up. And now we got to create this environment all over again of trying to get people excited about, wanting to take their convention. It by all indications that the forecasts are saying it's going to be 2 years where we get the type of tourism numbers that we're accustomed to. But I sent almost 3,000 people home in March, and we're going to work remotely. And then once we got to a point where we basically said, all right, you can go back to the office, but we're keeping essentially our storefronts closed. So outside people couldn't come in. We put all the measures in place where you got to wear your masks in public settings. But I told every one of my department heads, I said, I want you to make meticulous notes of what it took to pull this off. And so, of course, we needed more laptops, more cell phones, all these things that we needed in order to continue to operate in the state remotely. But we've also discovered where we had known historically what our productivity has looked like for the last 20 years. And some of the remote working, we have had higher productivity. And some of it is like with our call centers. Well, now down in Miami, they're not driving an hour and a half, every day going to and from work. So their productivity has increased from working from home. So we're definitely going to take what we've learned from COVID-19 and where we can be more efficient. If I can, shrink the size of government, just like small business have data to shrink the size of their footprint to survive, we're going to do the same thing, especially if we can maintain the same level of service. And then if it gets to the point where we're overwhelmed with the demand of services, then, we'll go back and we'll ask for more help. But, government should operate no different the way small business does. We should shrink and grow as demand. We shouldn't just anticipate a guaranteed, check from the citizens of the state of Florida when their times are at their worst too.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that.
Sure.
We've got a question about firefighters, first responders, maybe EMTs, but it's actually going to be a two-part. One is have there been any challenges recruiting that profession, those public safety professionals? And two, to what extent do our firefighters go to California? You mentioned, we get hit by a hurricane, the Gulf Coast guys, they're coming to help us and vice versa. But there's, wicked fires happening out west. And so are we seeing some of our guys traveling that far to help there?
So we thank goodness that there are, people that wake up one day and they decide they want to be an EMT or a firefighter or a police officer, first responder. It's a special calling. And, we don't have vibrant communities. We don't have successful businesses. We don't have good schools. We don't have any of this growth and development in the state if we don't have a robust safety net that works 24/7, 365. So, whatever we can do to show appreciation for those individuals who wear the uniform, that work 24/7 while we're at birthdays and Christmases and proms and Thanksgiving, we should do everything we can to support them. So now when it comes to deploying out for emergencies like that, so in Florida, it's unique. We've got all these urban search and rescue task forces all over the state. Now, Task Force 1, Task Force 2, I'm going to get a little technical on you. They're based out of Miami and Miami-Dade County. Those two task forces, when FEMA says, and they're a FEMA task force, FEMA will deploy those two guys almost anywhere
No, we
in the whole
got it.
United
No,
States.
here we go.
If we're going to deploy out at times of disaster, those are the ones that the Task Force 1, Task Force 2 out of Miami and Miami-Dade County, those are the ones that will get deployed out. Literally, they'll put them on an airplane and fly them over. The other task force, whether it be, in Tallahassee or Tampa or Jacksonville or Orlando, all those guys, they will usually, they'll go on a rotation, and or it was Orlando's time to go to Louisiana. If Louisiana still needed more help, then we were going to send Tampa to go join them. And then FEMA then makes the decision whether or not they send Miami or Miami-Dade County, because they are the ones that have to activate those. But at the same time, we will withhold a certain amount of resources out there because, we're meteorologists too, and we see 3, tropical depressions out in the Atlantic right now. So we won't cut ourselves short deploying out too many of our resources when we could be affected by the same storm. So we will deploy what we can and also reserve to protect our citizens as we always do.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Appreciate that. It's good to see the cross-state help when we're in need of things like that. That's every question I have, and we're right on time. I mean, perfect. CFO Patronis, on behalf of my board, the trustees that are with us today, and the entire community of Boca Raton and South Palm Beach County, we can't thank you enough for spending time with us today, for the job you're doing in Tallahassee or virtually, wherever we all are in this new world. We look forward to coming and seeing you, and it'll be March in 2021, assuming we can get back to resuming our visits to the state's capital. Challenging times. We're all being tested in ways we never thought we would. Glad to hear your restaurant's doing well, and I hope to get to it soon. But thank you so much for your leadership and for doing everything you're doing for us and being accessible. And to Aaron, I like that. Let Aaron be your Swiss Army knife. That's good. He's just down the street from us here in Boca Raton. So Aaron, thank you for that. And then just to the members, I just want to remind everybody, I said it at the beginning, if you want to listen to CFO Patronis again, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Boca's YouTube channel. There's going to be this great content along with so many other things that we've done for the past 6 months. So please go and subscribe to that. We have on the first responders topic, we have a first responders luncheon. I wish it was in person, CFO Patronis. You could join us, but it's going to be on September 23rd. And we are going to recognize in Boynton Beach a police officer, a firefighter, and an EMT. That was an event, one of those that was supposed to be in person. We felt like it was important to recognize these first responders and heroes. So we're going to have it virtually on the 23rd. So hopefully everybody on the call can join us. And then actually next week on the 10th, on the education front, our Golden Bell Education Foundation breakfast will be held at 8:30 in the morning on September month, where we will award a little over $100,000 to 22 public schools here in our community, still trying to do what we can in our current circumstances. So it's 3:23. I'm going to give everybody 7 minutes back of their day. But again, CFO Patronis, always awesome to see you. Thanks for all you're doing and your time today. And if we can do anything for you here in Boca Raton and South County, you know where we are. Just give us a buzz.
Well, the only thing you can do for me is hold me accountable. I think it's so important that, we have good government, but government is better when it's held accountable. And then just make sure, I'm confident that you will make it up to Tallahassee. So just give us a heads up and we'll secure that front conference room for you and all your members. If you want to bring in lunch, do whatever you want to do. And my office will be your office. And we really appreciate everything that you do. But please feel free to reach out to me however I can be of assistance.
You bet. Appreciate everything. Be safe up there. And we'll talk to you soon, CFO Patronis. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.